If budgeting is feeling stressful for you, you might be thinking about it the wrong way. It actually reduces our stress, but sometimes we get caught up in this word budgeting. So before we get started on our 3 tips, how you can use budgeting for self-care, let's just talk for a second about what budgeting actually is. Because I know personally, I get kind of stuck on that word, and I've had to do a lot of work on myself feeling like budgeting is not a bad word. Okay, so what budgeting actually is just telling our dollars where we want them to go, right? So it's actually a system of thinking about your categories of money. How much do you spend on housing? How much do you spend on groceries? How much do you spend on transportation? And saying, I want to spend X amount on housing. I want to spend X amount on groceries. And by doing this, we are actually taking care of ourselves because we feel so much less stress. And I just wrote a post in our community, the Female Finance Collective community, and Money Made Simple. And you could read about my philosophy and our philosophy here at the Female Finance Collective of how we think of budgeting in this way. So, without further ado, Jen and I are going to talk to you about 3 things you can do to make budgeting actually be self-care for you. Welcome to the Female Finance Collective podcast, where we encourage women to have open and honest conversations about all things money.
I'm Jen, and I struggled for many years with debt and feeling financially overwhelmed, so I know how frustrating it can be.
And I'm Mary Lee. As a financial planner, I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of women who've transformed their financial lives.
Hey, I'm Sybil. I built my dream life traveling the world and creating financial freedom on a teacher's salary.
Let's start the money conversation. That's right. So we even did a workshop on this last week because it's so it sounds funny to say like I'm really passionate about this, but when I think back to how I used to feel about money and how overwhelmed and stressed I was, had I really considered the fact that making this a priority, setting up a budget, really just, giving myself time every week, even if it's just 10 minutes to check in on my finances and really think through my spending decisions, I would have felt so much less stress and anxiety. I would have felt more confident. And that itself is taking care of me, right? That is
Yeah.
self-care, reducing those sort of negative feelings. So, I think that's a really valuable way for people to look at it. So if you're someone who, when Sybil started talking about budget, you did what she said she used to do, which is like, no thanks.
Uh-huh.
Like dig in your heels. Budgets are not for me. We're hoping that you can kind of shift your thinking about that a little bit and think about the act of creating a budget, setting up those categories and determining how much money you want to dedicate to each category, where you want to tell your dollars to go. And Sybil, you talked about those kind of needs, right? Like housing, transportation, groceries, and then also thinking about those wants. How much money am I comfortable spending on the things I enjoy doing that aren't needs, but I enjoy going out with my friends, or I enjoy a little shopping, or, those types of things as well. And really making your budget work for you. These are the things I have to pay for. These are the things I want to pay for. And just getting yourself set up makes such a huge difference in your feelings about your finances.
Yeah, and then there's really the third category. So we have our needs and our wants, and we have our financial goals,
Right.
right? And
Yes.
so by tracking and thinking about budgeting in a way that's going to help us reduce our stress, we can also move to some fun financial goals for ourselves once we kind of shift our mindsets, I guess, right? And so the first point here today that we're going to talk with you about is reducing future stress, okay? Not only does it reduce your stress right now, but it will reduce your future stress because really budgeting is a way to take care of your tomorrow you,
Mhm.
right? It's a way to think about and empathize with yourself for the future. And what this does is it calms your nervous system. It lets you know that I have a plan. I'm working hard to stick to it. And with that in mind, when we know where we're trying to go, we are much more likely to get there. And this, we don't realize how much money stresses us out sometimes. I
Mhm.
just got through, my husband and I are making a big financial decision of possibly selling an investment property. And I didn't realize how much money stress was on my mind for so long until we started talking about that,
Mm.
right? And it's just relieved our stress. And the very first thing we did is we got a whiteboard out and we just dumped, if we sold our condo and made X amount of money, what would we spend the money? How would we invest the money? What would we do with the money? And then we just let it sit there. But so that's like an even an informal way of starting to budget, right?
Mhm.
So thinking about where do you want your money to go? How much do you want to go to needs, wants, and your goals? This is a huge reliever of stress. And like I said, we often forget it, but like once you notice it, looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how stressed I was about that.
Right. Right. And I love how you said that we are talking about future stress. It's not, yes, we're also talking about right now, right? If you have a budget, you're feeling better now in the
Yeah.
moment, but you're also setting your future self up for success.
Yep.
Like 6 months from now, me is going to be so glad that I took the time to set up this budget because now I'm feeling better. 6 years from now, me is going to be even more relieved because now I'm going to have probably more money saved, more money invested, just going to have things in much better shape than
Yep.
if I ignore it. And so I do think there's real value in thinking about your future self, right? So, as like your example, selling off a property, it's not just about how you feel about it now, which is obviously stressful, but it's also how's it going to benefit us in the future. And I think
Yep.
that's a key piece that we sometimes forget about when we're working in the moment, where money can be very right now focused.
Yes.
And it's good to also remind ourselves that our future selves also are going to be benefiting from or feeling frustrated depending on how we set ourselves up now. So I think that the second point that we really want to talk about is how creating a budget is also giving yourself permission, not just restricting yourself. And I think that was I don't want to put words in your mouth, Sybil, but I do believe that was your initial hesitation with the budget. You were
For
like,
sure.
that is going to put all these restrictions on me. I'm only going to be able to spend certain amount of money because it's on my budget. It was just that was kind of the cycle that not just you, but a lot of people get in. And I'm sure that was
Yep.
part of my hesitation at the beginning too, right? Like, I can't, I don't, how do I know how much money I want to spend on, this 3 months from now? But I think that a budget, the number one thing I want people to remember is that a budget is flexible. It does not mean, well, I hit this $25 on whatever, so now I can't spend any more money in that category. Like, that's not really how it works. It's how we start. And then we let our budget be flexible and move as we change, as we stick with it for a few months and we realize that's not quite right. I can cut back here because I really want to increase this. We can make those changes. And I think that it gives us permission to modify our spending, right? And
Yeah,
modify
and
where we're
as
putting
we
our money.
should, right? Like
Right.
we think we have to make the perfect budget that's going to be exactly on point. Well, you know what? I don't know about you, Jen, but I can't do that. Even with my real strong habit of tracking, each month is different, each year is different, right? I have variable income because I'm an entrepreneur, like all these things. Um, there's tax breaks, just there's so many things that change every year in your life. And so recognizing just getting started and making a budget and trying to stick with it, and then revising it. You're exactly right. I think that's the biggest permission that worked for me is realizing yes, I said I wanted to have this budget last month, but now I really realize I want it to be that way and giving myself the grace to change it. Oh my gosh, that's huge. That's huge.
Yep.
Um, and then I would say the third point on using budgeting as self-care is that it really builds trust with yourself. So to kind of add on to this, it's okay to change your budget. It's okay to only track a couple categories at first to get started, right? But every single time you check in, you're keeping your promise to yourself. You're telling yourself, I'm doing this. I can set a budget. I can try to follow it the best I can. I can revise it and make it work for me. And this trust with ourselves changes everything. It literally does because we feel like we can do it. We build confidence. We have less stress. We are just functioning in so much of a better state when we trust ourselves. And I would add to that, give ourselves grace. If last month I didn't do so well with my budget, I overspent or whatever it may be, I just have to say, you know what? I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna learn from it, and I'm gonna move forward. And next month, I'm not gonna spend so much in that category. Um, or if there's hard realities of you need much more in your needs category than you want, so be it for right now, accept it, and then start planning ahead, dreaming ahead. What could I change? What might be different in 5 years that could let me relieve some of that living expenses, for example, or whatever it may be. But this trust in yourself is absolutely huge because it's the extreme opposite of you feeling like I can't do anything. Why would I even try? I tried last year and I gave up. I failed, right? So this shifting your mindset and reducing that stress and knowing it's permission will help you build trust in yourself. It's really amazing to like if you're a reflective person to watch that transformation, but it makes a huge difference.
I agree 100%. And I also think a big piece of it, like you said, is that confidence. And it
Yeah.
became easier for me. The more I do it, the easier it is for me to have those like hard conversations with myself. That's what I like to
Mhm.
talk about. It's easier for me to say like, "Hey self, do you really need to be ordering takeout 3 nights a week?"
Yep.
Like, is that, of course it's easier. Of course it's faster. Of course it's, feels less stressful in the moment. But is it really worth the amount of money that I'm spending? So maybe I need to make a change. And,
Yep.
my husband and I recently did a thing because we had a hard conversation with ourselves. His car was still a great car, but it was old and it was starting to need some very expensive repairs just because it was 12 years old. And it had such low mileage. And he was like, why does this low mileage need these repairs? But it was just old, right? And so things need to be replaced. And so we were like, could we be a one car household? Like, could we sell this car and just share one for a little while? It would reduce the insurance payment, which isn't a ton on an older car, but we would save on that.
Oh, it adds
And
up.
yeah, and so we did it. We sold his
Woo.
car about a week ago, and we're a one car household right now. It's easier because we don't have kids, so I
Yeah.
recognize that. Um, but we are going to test it out for 6 months. We put the money
Hmm.
that we made from the sale in a high yield savings account. We're going to let
Hmm.
it hang out there for 6 months in a safe place, but still earning some interest. And if after 6 months we're like, that was a real huge pain. We need a second car. We decided we'll buy something that's like really inexpensive, but just a quality commuter car where we have a second vehicle in case. And if after 6 months we're like, you know what, that worked, we're going to use that money to pay off my car and invest the rest. So, that was a hard conversation. Is it easier to have two cars? Absolutely. But because we've been doing this budgeting and tracking and paying attention and really making caring about our finances a priority for us, we started to trust ourselves with these like kind
Yep.
of what may seem to some people, I don't know if risky is the right word, but these more like obscure decisions, right? Like, Nikki, is this something we could do? And so I think that's a big piece of this self-care is you have these hard conversations and you start being willing to make changes. Could I move into an apartment that was a little bit less a month? I might have to drive an extra 10 minutes to work, but I'd be saving this amount of money every month. Like, you can start thinking big and thinking a little bit out of the box about how you want to manage your money so that it impacts you in the future.
For sure. And I just have to comment on those two examples because we are a two-car family with three drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people around me are like, how do you do that? And we chose that, right? We chose to live somewhere that my husband can ride his electric bike to work every day. So we could make it work with three people, two cars, right? And did we do that right when we had the idea? Absolutely not. We did that over time, right? We did that because we started paying attention, just like you said, to our transportation budget. So it's especially this budgeting. Once you get into it, it's like, oh, I can change some of my outcomes, even on my needs, because
Mm-hmm.
transportation is in that need category,
Right.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
there are alternatives. E-bikes are really a really good alternative these days. They've been around, like we had one in Europe a long time ago, but in the US, they're really big and there's a lot of rebates on them right now. States are giving rebates for you to buy a new e-bike. So it's just that once you start tracking that money and setting those budgets and numbers and you realize you want more money over here in your high yield savings account to do X, maybe it's a car later, maybe it's your next dream. It's like,
Yep.
whoa, that relieves stress. That gives me permission to do what I want to do with every dollar I have. And that builds huge trust with myself. I love that so much. So just we want you to remember that budgeting is not about restriction or control. It's not only for type A people, things like this. We need to let that kind of stuff go. Budgeting can look like you want it to look, but it's really thinking about where is every single dollar going? Every dollar needs to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about money in this way, it changes everything. And so this has been a really fun conversation, Jen, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I think this is one of those times where people should just go for it,
Yep.
right? Just stop overthinking it, just try. Set up 10 minutes. You don't have to set your whole budget up in one setting. Take 10-minute bites at a time, one small step at a time, and just start the process. We have a
Yep.
ton of resources about this in our community. So, and our community is free, and you can
Yes.
access the
Join
budgeting
us.
resources for free. So if this is something you know you want to do, and but you're just like, I don't know where to start, access to the budgeting stuff and the basic foundational skills is free in our community, and we would love to have you there. And we answer questions. We're there for you, right? It's not just like this
Yep.
void. We show up in there and we're there to help. So don't let that hold you back. Don't let lack of knowledge or lack of someone you feel like you can go to and ask for help. I always felt like, oh, people are going to laugh at me. I'm the only one who doesn't know how to do this. I know now that wasn't true, but it can feel like that, right? You can feel
Yes.
like everyone else is doing this and I'm over
Yep.
here not even knowing how to make a budget. So let us help you with that. We would love to have you in our community. There's a link in the notes for the show, and just have to click it and you can join us there.
Yeah. We have a whole module on budgeting. We can't wait to see you guys there.